The Luna ring was still warm from Cassian's hand when High Counselor Lucien Vane ordered the wedding music to stop. 100 silver bells died mid-note above Blackspire's great hall, leaving Aara Ardan beneath the moonlit altar with her fingers half-curled around the ancestral band. Across from her, Lycan King Cassian Draven did not reach for her again. He stared at the black ledger Lucien had placed between them as if 4 years of loyalty had been reduced to ink. "This ledger bears her seal," Lucien announced. His voice carried to every alpha, elder, and warrior gathered for the coronation. "It records the sale of our northern defense routes to the Ashfang rebels." A royal physician stepped forward with a second file. Lady Alara also concealed that she cannot produce an heir. Murmurs spread through the hall. Alara saw Seraphine Vane waiting beside the council dais in a white silver gown. Not mourning white, bridal white. Alara touched the ledger. The signature looked like hers until the final stroke, where the ink curved left instead of right. This was forged. Cassian's jaw tightened. She lifted the medical file. "And I have never seen this." "Enough," he said. The single word struck harder than a slap. His wolf pressed through his eyes, cold gold beneath the crown. He had spent the morning hearing that hesitation would make him resemble his father, the weak king who had nearly lost Blackthorn. "Give me 1 hour," Alara said. Her voice did not shake, though the bond inside her chest had begun to pull tight. "Let Silas compare the seals, question the guards, examine the original archives." Lucien's gaze flicked toward Cassian. "The rebels will attack before sunset if weakness is displayed now." Cassian looked at Alara then, and she saw the battle behind his stillness. Love stood on one side, pride, war, and the council stood on the other. Pride won. "Aara Ardan," Cassian said, forcing command into every syllable. "I reject you as my mate, strip you of the title of Luna Elect, and remove your name from the royal pack ledger." The bond snapped. Pain ripped through Alara's ribs so violently that blood filled her mouth. Her knees bent, but she caught herself against the altar. No one moved. Cassian's hand twitched. Seraphine watched that hand, afraid he might reach for the woman he had just condemned. Alara swallowed the blood and straightened. "Look at me," she said. Cassian did. Whatever plea he expected never came. She slid the Luna ring from her finger before the royal guards could touch her. A pale circle remained on her skin. "You had the right to investigate," she told him. "You chose humiliation because it was faster." Then, she placed the ring on the altar. The moonstone flashed once beneath her hand and went dark when Seraphine reached for it. "Take her below," Lucien ordered. Silas Crow, the royal archivist, lowered his head as the guards advanced. Alara recognized shame in the old man's face, then heard 3 soft taps beneath the altar rail, an emergency signal once used by royal strategists. She stepped backward before the guards closed around her. A hidden panel shifted open behind the wedding tapestry. Silas had given her one path, and Alara understood it would close forever the moment she entered. She ran through dust and darkness, while the ceremony resumed above her. The council had prepared another bride, another vow, another future before destroying hers. Behind the stone walls, Cassian felt each step she took as a blade dragging through the severed bond. He told himself she would be captured at the eastern gate. He told himself the evidence was real. Yet when Seraphine lifted the Luna ring, the moonstone remained black, cold, and silent. Alara reached the storm road beyond Blackthorn's border before the rejection fever buckled her legs. Headlights broke through the rain. A doctor dragged her from the mud and searched for a pulse. Hours later, Alara woke beneath white sheets, one hand over her empty ring finger. Doctor Tessa Reed stood beside the bed, holding a scanner, her face stunned. "You are pregnant," she whispered. Then the speaker filled the room with 2 heartbeats. "All right, dear friends. We have reached the part where I gently ask for your help, and where the Alpha King pretends he is not impatient. Our channel is still very young. We do not have a grand castle, a royal army, or even a magical wolf at the office. What we do have is a sincere desire to bring you stories filled with kindness, emotion, love, and a little laughter. If we are doing something well, please support us with a subscription or a like. If we are doing something poorly, please tell us kindly in the comments. We are here to learn, not to pretend we are perfect. Your support helps this small storytelling family grow. Thank you, my friends. Now, the Alpha King would like his story back. Aara woke to the smell of antiseptic and rain. Pain pulsed beneath her ribs, each beat of her heart dragging against the torn mate bond. Doctor Tessa Reed stood beside the narrow bed, one hand gripping the scanner, the other resting protectively over Alara's wrist. 2 rapid heartbeats filled the room. For one stunned second, Aara forgot the wedding, the ledger, and Cassian's rejection. Then memory returned with brutal clarity. How far? She whispered. 6 weeks, perhaps 7, Tessa said. Twins. Aara closed her eyes. Cassian had rejected not only her, but the children he did not know existed yet. A fresh spasm seized her before she could speak again. Her back arched, breath breaking into a strangled cry as heat flooded her veins. Tessa pressed a cold cloth to her neck. Rejection fever, she explained. Your body is trying to survive what your bond cannot understand. Aara tasted blood and forced herself to focus. Can it harm them? If the fever continues, yes. That answer steadied her faster than comfort could have. She gripped the sheets and counted each breath. No tears came. There was no room for them now. 2 lives now depended on her next decision alone. By afternoon, royal riders reached the highway outside the clinic. Tessa watched them through the blinds, while Aara lay silent in the back room. One guard nailed a council notice to a roadside post. The parchment carried Cassian's seal and ordered every pack, healer, and border station to detain Aara Ardan for treason. Silver restraints were authorized. He signed this, Aara said when Tessa brought the notice inside. Her thumb traced the royal crest. Perhaps he wants a trial, Tessa offered. Aara looked at the line permitting force against an injured female. No. He wants control before he wants truth. At Blackspire, Cassian stood over the same warrant while Lucien waited beside his desk. The king's wolf had not stopped pacing since Aara vanished. The severed bond felt wrong, stretched rather than dead. But pride kept him from saying so. Bring her back alive, Cassian ordered. Lucien inclined his head. Of course. No public punishment until I question her myself. Your mercy will be remembered. Cassian heard the insult beneath the words, yet still pressed his seal into the wax. He did not ask why silver chains were listed. He did not remove them. That silence became another choice entirely. Tessa led Aara through a service exit after sunset. They wore borrowed coats and kept their heads down as they crossed the bus depot. Near the northern platform, Aara saw another copy of the warrant beneath a lantern. Her own wedding portrait stared from the page, beautiful and condemned. Beneath it, the reward for information was large enough to buy a house. I cannot remain Aara Ardan, she said. Tessa studied her. Then who are you? Aara placed one hand over her abdomen. The answer hurt, but it also opened a door. Mara Hale. A widow. No pack. No history. To kill Aara Ardan, they needed a body the river would never return. Tessa drove an abandoned clinic car toward Widow's Gorge, while rain erased the road behind them. Aara cut her palm with a surgical blade and pressed blood into the driver's seat. She left a torn piece of her wedding veil beneath the broken window, then watched Tessa release the vehicle down the flooded slope. It struck the rocks once, before water swallowed it. Aara did not look away. When they find this, Tessa said, they will believe you are dead. Aara whispered. Then my children may live. At dawn, Cassian stood above the gorge, while soldiers searched the violent current. A strip of white fabric clung to a thorn below the road. He recognized it from Alara's wedding dress. Lucien called the wreck proof of guilt and death, but Cassian's wolf threw itself against his ribs, refusing the conclusion. He reached through the rain and touched the blood on the seat. The bond gave no final break, only a distant ache he could not name. Miles away, Aara crossed Greyhaven's boundary. Beneath her coat, the moonstone pendant suddenly burned bright, revealing a hidden royal seal within it. The blizzard struck Greyhaven before midnight, burying roads, roofs, and every trail leading back to Blackthorn. In the clinic's upstairs room, Aara gripped the bedframe while another contraction tore through her. Rejection fever had weakened her for months, yet she refused to let fear enter her voice. Tessa moved between candles, boiled water, and blood-stained sheets. issuing calm instructions over the wind. "Again," she urged. Alara pushed until a newborn cry cut through the storm. A boy. Before relief could reach her, pain seized her once more. Minutes later, a second cry answered the first. A girl, fierce and breathing. Tessa placed both infants against Alara's chest as the lights failed completely. Their warmth settled over her like a vow. She named the boy Rowan and the girl Lyra, choosing names that belonged to no royal registry. When the twins cried together, the moonstone pendant at Alara's throat flared silver. A hairline crack split its surface, revealing a seal hidden beneath the stone, a crescent crossed by an upright sword. Tessa stared. Aara had seen the symbol once, carved into her mother's jewelry box. Before she could question it, the pendant dimmed, leaving the room silent except for 3 heartbeats. In the years that followed, Mara Hale became Greyhaven's trusted healer. She treated feverish rogue children before accepting payment, then balanced accounts after midnight, while Rowan slept beneath her desk, and Lyra arranged empty bottles by color. She mapped supply routes, negotiated with human pharmacists, and converted an abandoned warehouse into a relief center. No miracle built her life. It rose from careful ledgers, sleepless nights, and the discipline that Blackthorn had once used without honoring. Under her direction, Greyhaven created winter stores, emergency tunnels, and a registry for children without packs. Still, beneath Alara's bed, a bag remained packed. 5 years passed, but Aara never lied cruelly about Cassian. When Rowan asked whether their father was dead, she said, "No, he is a king who made a terrible choice." Rowan absorbed the answer in troubled silence. Lyra, less cautious, asked whether kings could apologize. Alara's hands paused over a jar of sage. "They can," she said, "but apologies do not decide what happens afterward." The twins inherited more than Cassian's dark hair. Rowan heard strain beneath spoken promises, while Lyra could stand inside another wolf's dominance without lowering her eyes. Those gifts frightened Alara more than any royal patrol. The Iron Ridge wagon arrived at dawn, carrying 6 children whose lips had turned gray. Their guards smelled of steel, pine, and panic. Alara examined the child and found black crystals beneath his fingernails. Wolfsbane poisoning, refined to dissolve slowly in grain. "Close every well," she ordered. "Burn the infected sacks. Nobody leaves until I identify the source." A warrior protested that Greyhaven held no authority over Iron Ridge. Alara met his gaze. "Then carry those children home and explain why pride mattered more than breath." He obeyed. Within minutes, her clinic became a command center, and every adult followed Mara Hale. By noon, Alara had isolated the poison and recognized its bitter metallic scent. The formula matched one she had designed years earlier for Blackthorn's sealed antidote vault. Someone had reversed her work, turning medicine into a weapon. She marked each poisoned village on a map. The pattern followed food routes approaching Iron Ridge, not military roads. Whoever controlled the Wolfsbane wanted hunger, panic, and rebellion. Outside, horses thundered into the square. Conversations died as a tall man in a black coat entered the clinic. Alpha Cale Thorn carried no crown, yet his authority pressed against every wall without a spoken command. Cale's gaze moved from the suffering children to Alara's map. "Who is in charge?" he asked. "I am," she replied. He tested her immediately, shifting one village marker toward the eastern ridge. Alara returned it to its original place. "That road floods in spring. Your supplier used the winter passage." Cale's expression sharpened. For an hour, he challenged each conclusion. She answered with ledgers, symptoms, and terrain. Then a child convulsed. Alara signaled 3 assistants using a closed fist, 2 fingers, and a downward turn. Cale went still. Only Blackthorn's strategists knew that command. Cale faced her. "Lady Aara Ardan." Cale did not repeat her name. He simply closed the clinic door and waited until the last Iron Ridge guard moved beyond hearing. Alara kept one hand beside the antidote tray, close enough to reach the silver scalpel hidden beneath it. "That woman died 5 years ago," she said. Cale's gaze dropped to the moonstone pendant at her throat, then returned to her face. Dead women rarely command Blackthorn signals. Rowan appeared in the hallway, watching him with unsettling stillness. Lyra stood behind her brother, chin lifted against Kale's alpha aura. Kale noticed both children, and something guarded sharpened in his expression. "I came for the poison, not your past," Kale said. He placed 3 sealed packets on the counter. Each bore a different merchant mark, yet the grain inside carried the same blackthorn residue. Aara examined the stitching, the wax, and the route numbers. "These shipments never crossed the main road," she said. "Someone is using abandoned winter tunnels beneath the western ridge." Kale slid a blank map toward her. "Prove it." His challenge was deliberate, almost insulting, but Aara understood the test. She marked flood lines, storage caves, and refugee camps, then drew one route through the mountains without hesitation. Kale studied the map for a long moment. "My scouts missed that passage." "Your scouts search like soldiers," Aara replied. "The smugglers are thinking like starving families, instead of taking offense." Kale nodded. That restraint unsettled her more than anger would have. He asked what she needed to produce enough antidote for every poisoned settlement. Aara named herbs, glass, clean water, and 20 wagons. "You will have 30, he said. "In return, Greyhaven enters Iron Ridge protection until this ends." Alara's expression hardened. "Protection becomes ownership quickly." Kale placed his signet on the counter. "Then write the terms yourself, Mara Hale." Before she could answer, glass shattered in the medicine room. 3 masked wolves crashed through the windows. Silver ash streaked across their coats to confuse scent trails. One seized the cabinet containing patient records. Another hurled a torch toward the herb shelves. Aara kicked the flame aside, struck the attacker's wrist with a mortar, and shouted evacuation orders. Tessa moved the children through the cellar door. Rowan refused to leave until Lyra was safe. Kale shifted partially, claws tearing through leather gloves as he drove one intruder into the wall. The third attacker raised a crossbow toward the cellar entrance. Aara threw the silver scalpel before Kale could turn. It buried itself in the attacker's forearm, forcing the shot wide. The bolt struck a ceiling beam. Rowan stepped between Lyra and the falling splinters, his eyes flashing silver. "Stop," he commanded. The word carried a weak but unmistakable alpha resonance. Every wolf in the room froze for half a heartbeat. Kale used that instant to break the attacker's crossbow and pin him against the floor. Aara stared at Rowan, fear tightening her throat. Her son looked frightened by his own voice. Kale looked at him as if prophecy itself spoke. The attackers carried no pack marks, but one wore a blackthorn military clasp beneath his sleeve. Aara removed it, without touching his skin, and placed it inside a glass jar. "They came for the records," she said. "Not the antidote." Kale understood immediately. Someone wanted the names of every displaced wolf Greyhaven had treated, especially children with unusual blood. He ordered his guards to secure the streets, then faced Aara. "You need sanctuary." She opened Greyhaven's ledger and wrote 3 conditions: local rule, protected records, and no investigation into her children's father. Kale read each line before signing beneath them. "I will not use you against Cassian," Kale said, "and I will not claim what you have not offered." Aara searched his face for ambition disguised as mercy, but found only caution and old grief. "Greyhaven remains free," she said. "Greyhaven remains yours," he answered. Later, while healers rebuilt the shattered room, Kale returned to Iron Ridge with blood from the captured attacker and one strand Rowan had left on a torn blanket. He ordered a private lineage comparison, expecting proof of Draven ancestry. The report arrived before dawn. Rowan and Lyra carried Draven blood, but also the mark of Moon Warden. 5 years after Aara vanished, Blackthorn still wore the shape of a powerful kingdom, but its foundations had begun to rot. Grain shipments disappeared before reaching mountain villages. 3 lesser packs withheld taxes, claiming the royal roads were no longer safe. Soldiers returned victorious from border clashes, yet families gathered outside Blackspire demanding food, medicine, and answers. Cassian heard every accusation from the throne Alara had once helped him protect. Her absence haunted the machinery of rule. She had balanced supply ledgers, negotiated winter credit, and remembered which alpha lied when afraid. Seraphine dismissed such work as servant labor until merchants stopped honoring contracts and quartermasters began stealing from warehouses. Cassian replaced officials, doubled patrols, and threatened executions. But the losses continued. Each failure carried Aara's handwriting in reverse, not what she had done, but what no one could repeat. On the 5th anniversary of Seraphine's installation, the council staged a grand renewal ceremony to silence rumors that the moon goddess had rejected her. Before hundreds of wolves, Seraphine raised the lunar ring and demanded its blessing. The moonstone remained black. Lucien ordered the priest to continue. Seraphine forced the ring onto her finger. Silver light exploded across the dais, burning her skin and throwing her backward before the pack. A gasp moved through the hall. Seraphine screamed that Aara's curse still poisoned the relic. Lucien repeated the lie immediately, giving fear a direction. Cassian said nothing. He watched smoke rise from Seraphine's hand and remembered the wedding altar, when the same stone had flashed beneath Aara's fingers before going dark at another woman's touch. For the first time, suspicion outweighed grief. He ordered the ring sealed inside his vault. That night, Cassian entered the royal office alone and opened the supply ledgers Aara had maintained before her death. Her notes were precise, every correction angled sharply upward. The signature on the treason ledger curved left at the final stroke. He stared until dawn, then summoned Silas Crow from the archives. The old historian arrived carrying dust, fear, and an answer 5 years late, inside a locked black leather case. Silas placed 2 pages beside each other. "Aara never signed this," he said. "I knew the pressure pattern was wrong, but Lucien controlled the witnesses and threatened my family." Cassian lifted his eyes slowly. The room chilled beneath his aura. "You let me condemn her." Silas did not defend himself. "Yes, and you refused the hour she asked for." The bitter truth landed harder, because it was spoken without pity. Cassian demanded every original record connected to Aara's trial. Silas warned that Lucien would notice. "Let him," Cassian replied. Yet rage did not erase responsibility. He had possessed the authority to delay the ceremony, question the physician, and examine the seal. Instead, he had chosen certainty because doubt felt like weakness. The kingdom had paid for his pride, but Aara had paid first with her name, bond, and future destroyed. Before noon, a military courier delivered reports from Iron Ridge. Several poisoned children had survived because a Greyhaven healer identified the wolfsbane formula within minutes. Her antidote notes matched a sealed blackthorn method developed by Aara years earlier. The healer called herself Mara Hale. Cassian read the name twice. Something savage stirred beneath his ribs. Not hope exactly, but the refusal of a grave to stay closed. His wolf rose instantly. The courier also carried a photograph taken outside Greyhaven's relief center. Cassian saw Cale Thorne first, standing beside supply wagons with his guards. Then he saw the woman near the clinic door. Her face was turned away, but her posture struck him like a blade, shoulders straight, weight balanced, one hand guarding 2 children. A dark-haired boy watched the camera. Beside him stood a girl with storm-gray eyes raised. Cassian brought the image closer to the window. The girl's eyes were Draven eyes, blue-gray before power turned them silver. Around her neck hung half of a moonstone pendant, identical to the one Aara had worn since childhood. His hand began to shake. Behind him, Silas whispered, "My king, that child cannot be older than 5. Cassian felt the severed bond pull from somewhere west. "Find Greyhaven," he ordered. Cale took Aara beyond Greyhaven before sunrise, traveling through pine forests until ruined towers appeared beneath the fog. No banners marked the abandoned valley, only crescent symbols carved into stones blackened by fire. Rowan and Lyra remained with Tessa, protected by Iron Ridge guards. Aara disliked leaving them, but Cale had promised answers about the seal hidden inside her pendant. Answers dangerous enough to require absolute secrecy from every royal spy. Inside the largest ruin, Cale uncovered a stone table wrapped in oilcloth. Upon it lay a book bound with white leather, its pages protected by silver thread. Aara recognized the cross sword and crescent stamped across its cover. "The Moon Warden Codex," Cale said. "My family guarded it after yours was hunted." Aara opened the book and found laws granting Moon Wardens authority to judge councils, protect royal heirs, and depose kings. Her hands trembled when she found her mother's name beside the last recorded oath. Cale showed her a sealed testimony written 20 years earlier. It stated that Lady Aara Ardan had discovered Lucien Vane manipulating royal marriages and erasing bloodlines capable of limiting council power. The rogue attack that supposedly killed her had been an execution. Alara read the statement twice, grief turning slowly into cold purpose inside her chest. Cale had known only fragments when he first confronted her in Greyhaven. The lineage report completed the picture. He placed 2 documents beside the codex, one scientific, prepared from Rowan's abandoned heir, the other magical, recorded through a bloodstone ritual. Both confirmed Cassian Draven as the twins' father. Both also identified Alara as the last direct Moon Warden heir. Under the Twin Crown Covenant, she was their lawful guardian regent immediately. Alara's first reaction was not triumph, it was terror. If Cassian learns this, he will claim them. Cale did not soften the truth. He may try. He pointed to the Covenant's final clause. No king could seize Moon Warden twins without a public moon trial, and no rejected mother could be forced into another bond. The law protects you, he said. Alara closed the codex. Only if someone powerful enforces it. The answer arrived that evening beneath a hood and blood-stained cloak. Silas Crow collapsed at Greyhaven's gate with a silver bolt buried below his shoulder. Tessa treated him, while Alara stood across the room, arms folded, refusing to offer comfort. Silas had watched her condemnation in silence. His fear had cost her 5 years, her name, and her children's right to exist openly. "Speak," she ordered after he woke fully. Silas opened a waterproof case chained to his wrist. Inside lay Alara's original medical file, proving she had never been infertile, the untouched supply ledger, Lucien's written order directing the royal physician to replace her results, and a crystal containing unedited security footage. In the recording, Seraphine entered Alara's study before dawn, planted the forged ledger, then handed Lucien the stolen royal seal outside the archive door herself that night. Alara watched Seraphine smile within the crystal and felt no surprise, only confirmation. Her anger turned toward Silas. "You had this." He lowered his head. "Not all of it, enough to doubt them, and I chose my family's safety." Alara stepped closer. "Then do not ask me for forgiveness." Silas swallowed hard. "I came to earn testimony, not forgiveness." Cale observed silently, respecting her right to remain furious with him. Silas then revealed the conspiracy's final design. Lucien had been dosing Cassian with diluted wolfsbane through ceremonial wine, weakening his judgment and wolf without obvious illness. Seraphine would announce a pregnancy, present a child selected from a loyal bloodline, and name Lucien regent after Cassian's engineered death. The poisoned grain spreading through Iron Ridge would provoke war, allowing the council to blame Cale and seize emergency rule over every northern pack. Before Alara could respond, the pendant against her throat burned silver. Far away, Cassian had entered the abandoned wedding archive and broken Lucien's private seal. For one breath, the blood echo between him and the twins opened. He felt 2 living heartbeats, young and terrified. Somewhere west, at Greyhaven, Rowan cried out from his sleep. Silas looked toward the window. "The king knows they exist." Outside, royal horns answered darkness. Seraphine announced her pregnancy before the royal court at noon, wearing white silk and Cassian's ancestral ring on a chain above her heart. Lucien stood beside her with the royal physician, who presented a sealed medical file confirming an heir. Applause rose carefully, more obedient than joyful. Cassian remained on the throne, staring at Seraphine as though she had spoken in an unknown language. His wolf went utterly still inside. He knew the claim was impossible. He had never completed a mating bond with Seraphine, and for months he had refused her chambers entirely. Yet the physician swore upon the oathstone that conception had occurred. Cassian descended the dais slowly. "Repeat your finding," he ordered. The man did, but sweat gathered beneath his collar. Seraphine pressed both hands to her stomach and smiled through carefully measured tears for everyone watching. Cassian did not expose her at once. He congratulated her before the court, then ordered the physician taken to the western chamber under guard. There, beneath a blood oath and without Lucien present, the man broke. Seraphine was not pregnant. Alara's infertility report had been fabricated. Lucien had paid him, threatened his daughters, and supplied diluted wolfsbane for Cassian's ceremonial wine. Every lie led back to the council itself directly. The physician also surrendered a crystal copy of the original security footage. Cassian watched Seraphine enter Aara's study before dawn, place the forged ledger inside her desk, and carry the stolen royal seal to Lucien. He watched it again, then once more, until rage stopped feeling hot and became something colder. 5 years earlier, Aara had asked for 1 hour. He had denied her even that small mercy in public. Cassian confronted Seraphine in the moon chamber, where the darkened Luna ring rested inside glass. She listened without flinching while he named every forgery. Then she laughed, softly and bitterly. "My father promised me safety if I became queen," she said. "Without this crown, I was only a daughter he could trade." Cassian asked whether fear justified destroying Aara. Seraphine met his eyes. "Did pride justify believing me?" Silence. Her final words cut deeper than accusation. "I placed evidence before you," she continued. "You chose it because truth required patience, and patience frightened you." Cassian ordered her arrested. Seraphine did not resist. As guards closed around her, she slipped one hand beneath her sleeve and pressed a hidden signal stone. Across the city, Lucien's loyal assassins received Greyhaven's location, and new instructions seized the twins before sunset at once. At Greyhaven, Aara spent the morning fortifying the relief center. Kale's soldiers guarded every entrance, while Tessa moved patient files into the cellar. Rowan practiced controlling his voice. Lyra refused to remove the moonstone fragment from her neck. Aara checked each lock herself, yet unease pressed against her ribs. The royal horns heard during the night had stopped too suddenly. Silence, she knew, often meant hunters were already close nearby. The attack began with smoke beneath the eastern windows. Masked wolves threw silver ash into the courtyard, blinding scent and forcing guards toward false fires. Aara recognized the distraction immediately. "Cellar route," she ordered. Tessa gathered the children. Kale fought at the outer gate, unaware that 2 assassins had entered through an abandoned medicine tunnel. One struck Tessa from behind. The other seized Rowan before Lyra could scream for help. Lyra bit the attacker hard enough to draw blood, but silver cloth covered her mouth. Rowan tried his alpha command. The word cracked weakly, weakened by silver dust. Aara reached the cellar seconds later and found Tessa unconscious beside an open passage. 2 small beds stood empty. On Lyra's blanket lay a broken clasp bearing Blackthorn's wolf crest. Aara lifted it with steady hands, while terror clawed silently inside her. Kale entered covered in blood, expecting grief and finding calculation. Aara spread a border map across the floor. Lucien could not use royal roads without Cassian's patrols seeing him. He would take the abandoned northern aqueduct, cross Widow's Gorge, then reach Blackthorn before moonrise. "Saddle every horse," Aara said. Her voice was quiet enough to frighten Kale. On the window, a child's handprint remained, marked with silver ash and blood. Aara rode at the head of Ironridge's fastest unit, the broken Blackthorn clasp clenched in her fist. Widow's Gorge lay 2 hours north, but Lucien's kidnappers had silvered the twins, slowing their wolves and masking the blood echo. Kale wanted to divide the riders. Aara refused. She studied the winter map, marked the aqueduct exits, and chose the narrow ravine where heavy wagons would be forced to stop before moonrise. Cassian reached the opposite ridge with 12 royal guards, guided by the twin heartbeats pounding beneath his ribs. When he saw Kale's banner below, jealousy flared, but shame crushed it quickly. This was not a contest for Aara. 2 children were in danger because his court had hunted them. He ordered his soldiers to lower Blackthorn colors and approach without alpha command, knowing Aara would interpret dominance as another threat. Lucien's carriage entered the ravine exactly where Aara predicted. She triggered a rockfall behind it, trapping the escort without crushing the children inside. Kale's archers pinned the assassins from above, while Aara descended the cliff on a rope, silver dagger between her teeth. Rowan's frightened voice echoed from the carriage. Lyra answered him through the gag, kicking the door with stubborn rhythm so their mother could find them in darkness. An assassin raised a silver crossbow toward Aara. Cassian struck him from the side, taking the bolt through his shoulder. Aara did not thank him. She cut the carriage chain, pulled Rowan free, then reached for Lyra as a silver trap snapped around the girl's ankle. Cassian tore the mechanism apart with bleeding hands. Lyra stared at him, sensing kinship before understanding it. "Are you the man who hurt Mama?" Cassian's face lost all color. He knelt despite the blood soaking his coat. "Yes," he said, refusing the easier lie. "I hurt her." Rowan stepped between him and Lyra, small fists clenched. Cassian did not claim them, touch them, or call them heirs. He simply unlocked Rowan's silver collar and placed it on the ground. Aara watched, recognizing the first honest act he had offered her since the wedding day. Lucien escaped through a hidden aqueduct, while his remaining men surrendered. He reached Blackspire before dawn and declared that Aara Ardan, aided by Iron Ridge, had kidnapped the Lycan King's heirs. Royal bells summoned every pack leader to emergency council. He demanded Alara's arrest and Kale's execution, betting Cassian would never publicly confess the children had been conceived before the wedding rejection and protected from his own warrant for 5 years. At the border sanctuary, Tessa treated the twins, while Kale removed Cassian's bolt. Aara stood in a Moon Warden cloak, recovered from the ruins, the ancient seal bright against her chest. Cassian asked permission to speak with the children later. "You will ask them," she replied. "Not me." Then she invoked asylum law and ordered him to kneel until his soldiers formally surrendered all authority within Moon Warden protected ground that night. The Lycan King lowered himself before her. Every Blackthorn guard followed. Kale watched Cassian's face, expecting rage, but found exhausted acceptance. Aara felt no triumph. Kneeling could not restore lost years or erase the road where she had nearly died. Still, Cassian's submission created the legal opening she needed. She raised the royal seal and announced that she would return to Blackspire, not as a fugitive, but as guardian regent. Kale offered 500 Iron Ridge warriors. Aara accepted only 50 witnesses and healers, refusing to turn the trial into an invasion. Cassian offered the royal army. She refused that entirely. Her evidence would enter the capital before any weapon did. Rowan and Lyra chose to travel beside her in a guarded carriage. Cassian rode behind them, close enough to protect, far enough to understand that proximity was not forgiveness yet. When Aara entered Blackspire's great hall, conversations collapsed into silence. Seraphine stood beside Lucien, beneath the royal banners, the lunar ring forced onto her bandaged hand. Lyra stepped forward before anyone could stop her. The moonstone pendant at her throat blazed. Across the hall, the lunar ring split with a sound like cracking ice, tore itself from Seraphine's finger, and flew through the air, stopping before Lyra's palm in fire. The lunar ring hovered above Lyra's palm, burning white, until Aara closed her fingers around it. Silence held the great hall. Lucien recovered first. He struck the council staff against the floor and declared the display forbidden magic. Aara stepped between him and her children. Kale's 50 witnesses formed a shield behind her, while Cassian stood unarmed at her right. "Invoke the moon trial," Aara said. "Before every pack tonight." The ancient bells sounded once. Pack leaders entered the witness circle, and Silas placed the Moon Warden Codex beside the throne. Aara presented the untouched supply ledger, her original medical file, Lucien's signed order, and the crystal containing the complete security recording. Seraphine's face drained as the image showed her planting evidence in Alara's study. No whisper could hide the truth now. Every wolf had seen her hand commit the betrayal. Tessa entered next with the twins' sealed DNA report. The bloodstone beside it glowed beneath Rowan's touch, confirming Draven blood and Moon Warden descent. Lucien called the test corrupted. Rowan looked toward him, silver eyes widening. "He is lying," the boy said. The oathstone cracked beneath Lucien's palm. Gasps broke across the chamber. Lyra clutched Alara's cloak, but she did not look away from the counselor who had hunted her family. Lucien's mask finally fell. He lifted 2 fingers, and hidden council guards drew silver weapons from beneath ceremonial robes. "Seize the heirs," he ordered. Cassian moved before anyone else. He shattered the first blade with his bare hand and drove its owner across the marble. Kale's warriors locked the doors. Seraphine reached for Lyra, hoping to trade the child for mercy, but the lunar ring scorched her wrist again violently. Aara drew the silver dagger from the trial table and cut Lucien's escape rope before he reached the western gallery. He crashed to the floor, snarling that Moon Wardens were traitors who had always weakened kings. Aara placed the blade at his throat without pressing deeper. "No," she said. "We limited men who mistook fear for loyalty." Cassian heard the judgment in her voice and knew it included him as well. Seraphine broke first. She confessed that Lucien had promised her safety, a crown, and freedom from the marriage he planned to sell her into. She admitted the false infertility report, the forged ledger, the stolen seal, and the invented pregnancy. Yet she still blamed Aara for being loved without bargaining for it. Aara answered quietly, "Pain explains your choices. It does not erase the people you destroyed along the way." When order returned, Cassian stepped into the witness circle alone. He removed his crown and placed it beside Alara's dagger. He admitted rejecting her without investigation, signing the silver restraint order, allowing her name to be erased, and trusting convenient evidence over 4 years of loyalty. "I was deceived," he said, "but I was not powerless. I chose speed, pride, and control. What happened to her belongs to me alone." The pack waited for Aara to punish him. Instead, she opened the codex and delivered law. Lucien lost rank, property, and wolf privileges before imprisonment in Silver Keep. The complicit counselors would face separate trials. Seraphine lost the Luna title and every estate gained through fraud. Blackthorn was ordered to restore Greyhaven, compensate the poisoned packs, and recognize Rowan and Lyra as equal heirs under their mother's guardianship without appeal. Then Cassian knelt. He placed the crown, the royal seal, and his claim to the restored bond at Alara's feet. "I ask no forgiveness," he said. "Judge me as king, father, and man." Aara felt the old bond stir, but it no longer ruled her body. Rowan watched Cassian with guarded curiosity. Lyra watched with grief. Cale remained silent, giving Aara the one gift neither crown had offered before space. Aara lifted the Luna ring. The pack begged her to return. Cassian did not. Beyond the hall waited 3 futures rebuilding Blackthorn beside the man who had broken her, joining Cale's rising alliance, or restoring Moon Warden as a sovereign refuge for every rejected woman and unclaimed child. She closed her hand around the moonstone. "Tomorrow," she said, looking at both kings, "I will announce which future belongs to me alone." Morning found Blackspire silent beneath a pale moon. Aara entered the great hall wearing no bridal white, no borrowed crown, only the restored Moon Warden cloak. Rowan and Lyra walked beside her. Cassian waited below the throne, bareheaded. Cale stood among the witnesses, not at her side. Every wolf watched the woman they had once allowed to leave alone. This time, Aara would decide what the kingdom deserved from her now. She opened the Moon Warden Codex and read Cassian's sentence. The royal council would be dissolved. Future kings would answer to elected pack representatives, healers, and border leaders. Cassian would surrender emergency powers, return the stolen Moon Warden territory, and fund Greyhaven's recovery from the treasury. He accepted each condition without protest. When she ordered him to renounce claim over her or the twins, his voice remained steady. "I renounce it completely." Then Cassian signed a second document. Aara retained full guardianship of Rowan and Lyra. He could visit only with their consent, under conditions she established, and never through Alpha Command. His hand paused before the final line, where he surrendered the right to demand restoration of their mate bond. The hall expected him to hesitate. He signed. The bond stirred within Aara, but it felt like a scar, not chains. Aara placed the Luna ring on the altar. "This title was used to measure women by obedience," she said. "It will not rule my daughter." A smith heated the silver until the band softened and the moonstone separated into 2 halves. Aara set each half within a seal, one for Rowan and one for Lyra. They were not promises of kingship. They were proof that neither child could be erased. Seraphine was brought forward without jewels or ceremonial paint. Her sentence was exile to a sanctuary that housed women and children displaced by council wars. She would work under guard, tend the wounded, and surrender every estate gained through fraud. Lucien had promised that power would make her untouchable. Instead, she would spend years facing those harmed by the system she had helped preserve. Aara offered no cruelty, only consequence. At sunset, the restored Moon Warden banners rose above the eastern towers. Aara announced that the territory would become a sovereign refuge for rejected mates, unrecognized children, hunted healers, and wolves refusing political marriages. Greyhaven would remain its open border city. Tessa would oversee its hospitals. Silas, stripped of royal office, would preserve the archives under public supervision. Redemption, Aara declared. Required service where silence had once caused suffering for others. Cassian approached Rowan and Lyra, only after Aara nodded. He knelt, so they would not have to look upward. "I am your father," he said, "but I have not earned that name from you." Rowan studied him, listening for falsehood, then gave none of his trust away. Lyra placed her new seal against Cassian's palm. "You can start by keeping promises," she said. Cassian closed his fingers carefully. "I will." Kale found Aara later on the Moon Warden border, where new boundary stones had replaced the ruins. He arrived without guards, mating papers, or a crown. He carried only an alliance treaty granting equal trade, mutual defense, and complete independence. "No hidden conditions?" Aara asked. "One," Kale answered. "You tell me when I become arrogant." She almost smiled. "That may require a larger document." He offered the pen. She signed first. After signing, Aara looked toward Blackspire, where Cassian had begun rebuilding a kingdom that no longer depended upon unquestioned obedience. She had forgiven enough to stop carrying hatred, but forgiveness was not return. Kale understood. He did not ask for a bond or promise eternity. When Aara reached for his hand, surprise softened his face. She chose him not as ruler, but as a man willing to walk beside her. Years later, Aara stood above Moon Warden's courtyard, with Rowan and Lyra beside her. Cassian waited among visiting fathers, no longer demanding a place near her throne. Kale stood one step away, close enough to support her, never close enough to eclipse her. Below, wolves called her guardian queen. Aara touched air seals, and understood that rejection had not ended her life. It had returned ownership of that life to her. So, Aara's story has finally reached its closing moment. Are you still here with me? Then perhaps her journey touched a place in you that words do not often reach. She was betrayed by the person who knew her best, misunderstood by those who should have trusted her, and condemned before she was ever allowed to defend herself. She was hurt, but she did not beg. She left, not because leaving was easy, but because staying would have cost her the last piece of her self-respect. She protected her children, rebuilt her life, and learned that being rejected by someone else did not mean she had to reject herself. That is the quiet strength Aara carried. She could not control Cassian's pride, the council's lies, or the judgment of the pack. She could only control her next step, and step by step, she built a future no one could take from her. An apology may open a door, but it does not automatically earn a place inside your life. Even kings must learn that lesson, preferably before losing 5 years and 2 children. If you believe your past should never own your future, comment one word below: freedom. And if this story stayed with you, please like, share, and subscribe. More stories are waiting for us.